And so the wonderful experiment of pulling myself off of my meds uh, crashed and burned within a couple weeks. Despite the fact I didn't want to admit it, my drinking increased probably threefold to the point where I didn't go more than 2 hours without drinking during the day. And I probably saw my porn use triple as well. I usually only used porn late at night after everybody in my family had gone to bed, but instead of looking for 15 minutes, I was watching for 2 hours. So I was getting even less sleep, drinking more, less sleep, more porn, vicious cycle. Eventually, even though I owned one third of the company, the other two partners came in and fired me. I ran the day-to-day operations. They fired me because I was truly destroying the company. And my family had a makeshift intervention.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today's guest, Joshua Shea, has come on to talk about his knowledge and his experience with addiction. So, welcome, Joshua. I appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for having me on, Jasmine. I appreciate it. Um, Obviously, the title of your show, I too was addicted. I became a pornography addict at 12 years old,
Oh, that's
way
young.
before the internet was ever here. And I also became an alcoholic at 14 years old. Obviously, it was in response to trauma, though I didn't really recognize it at the time till years later that I got into recovery. But I was the kind of addict who did a heck of a job hiding it. I did that by overachieving. I was the one who won all the awards. I was the one who seemed to have the perfect life, and that was to distract people from the life I really was leading behind closed doors. Um,
You're lucky because I was the most non-functional alcoholic you ever seen. There was no hiding that. So I wish I could have been like the functional one that did that because it like well maybe not because
well, the
being
problem is you get to the point where you're not functional, and the point where I wasn't functional was 20 plus years after I started. I had a wife, I had two kids, I had a home. I also was on my city council as a local politician, and I owned my own business. I was a magazine publisher here in
you
Maine.
were a very high functioning addict, very
super
high
high function,
functioning.
super
Yeah.
high functioning, and I think part of it was to keep myself busy nonstop because the toughest part of the day for me was midnight or 1 a.m. after there was no more work to do, after the family had gone to sleep, after it was just me sitting there by myself. That was the most painful time for me. And ultimately, around 2013, I saw that my business was starting to fail, and I made one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder since I've been about 22, I decided to pull myself off of my medication.
Oh,
I decided to do this because the company, the magazine company, was starting to fail, and I was not in a place that I could creatively or energetically bring it back. So I told
oh.
myself that if I pulled myself from my meds, I would access the energy, I would
I
access the brain power that would allow me to save this thing.
I get that because I'm on mental health medication and I know that it does kind of numb you a little bit in mentally speaking, right? And
Mhm.
I could see why you would think that, you know what I mean? It's not like uncommon for people to do this kind of thing. And that's why I just wanted to say that because I know it's not uncommon for people to be like, this is taking away from my creativity, taking away from my identity. I don't feel myself. I'm not, you know what I mean? And also being high functioning, it's very hard to realize or admit that you have a problem in the first place. So you're kind of playing doctor with yourself.
Well, as a quick aside, I remember being 24 or 25, meeting with my psychiatrist when we were figuring out what meds I should take. And I remember telling him because my bipolar ran much more towards the manic. I remember telling him, I don't know why you're giving me pills to bring me down. What you need to do is give everybody else pills to bring them up to where I am because I only needed 4 hours of sleep a night because I had an endless supply of energy and there they were knocking it down. I think getting put on mental health meds in my mid 20s may have actually made the addiction worse
It did
because
that to my cousin. So,
yeah, yeah, it makes them it gives you another reason to use your addictions as a crutch.
and they
And
become addictions, the pills themselves.
absolutely, absolutely. And so the wonderful experiment of pulling myself off of my meds uh, crashed and burned within a couple weeks. Despite the fact I didn't want to admit it, my drinking increased probably threefold to the point where I didn't go more than 2 hours without drinking during the day. And I probably saw my porn use triple as well. I usually only used porn late at night after everybody in my family had gone to bed, but instead of looking for 15 minutes, I was watching for 2 hours. So I was getting even less sleep, drinking more, less sleep, more porn, vicious cycle. Eventually, even though I owned 1/3 of the company, the other two partners came in and fired me. I ran the day-to-day operations. They fired me because I was truly destroying the company. And my family had a makeshift intervention. And while I don't remember very much about what they said, I do remember having that one moment of clarity where I said to myself, okay, you have spent a life manipulating people, you have spent a life being basically a jackass. And you have two choices here right now. You can either leave your family, friends, the people who've stood beside you, and go and be an alcoholic and a porn addict somewhere else and go see what that life is going to be like, even though at the time I knew it was ruining me, even killing me to a degree. Or I could figure out how to stop this stuff. I could work on my relationships with my wife, my kids, my parents. I didn't want to be, and nothing against these parents, but I did not want to be the divorced parent who only saw his kids every other weekend and on certain holidays. I didn't want to be the parent who their grandkids heard stories about what an idiot dad was, or my dad was earlier in life. I didn't, these were the people who stuck beside me and knew I was sick and weren't going to abandon me. And so I
Yep.
just and I knew that I had lost my opportunity to be a journalist in my town because of what happened, because I was so well known. People were not going to give me new opportunities, especially 12, 13 years ago. So I said, sign me up. What do you want me to do? And I
I
went
was the
to out.
same.
I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
just want to say, oh, I was the same. I feel like when you have a family and you're in addiction like that, especially alcoholism, for me, anyways, I was at risk of losing my daughter, and I would have been like, I had probably would have had to have supervised visits, same kind of thing. And it was my family. like just like you said, I didn't want to lose. I wanted to keep my family together, and that's why I stopped too. And I think people who have a family, that is like the biggest blessing in disguise in addiction, because that strength and that love for them is what really pushes you towards trying to get better.
Well, and I'll tell you, one of the things I deal, jumping far ahead, I am now a pornography addiction coach. And when I deal with very young people, 18, 20, 22, men or women, a lot of times they can't come up with a reason to quit that's strong enough than the urge to use. And a lot of times I will play to that. I will say, like, tell me about your grandmother or grandfather. Did you have a close relationship with them? And they'll usually it's like, oh yeah, I loved my grandfather. We went fishing together. He taught me how to do that. It was, he brought me to my first baseball game. And then I say to them, do you realize if you continue using pornography, you may not attract a partner or you may lose your partner. If
Or
you
never have the life you wanted.
Exactly. If you don't have a partner, you're not going to have kids. If you don't have kids, you're not going to have grandkids. So guess what? You're never going to get to be grandpa in the situation where you take your grandson to the lake to go fishing. Why? Because 50 years earlier, you couldn't stop using pornography. And you have to show this stuff has ripple effects the rest of your life. If you don't want kids, I often will tell people, well, let's say it's you and somebody else at your work who are up for a promotion. You who stays up and watches porn till 3 a.m. You who shows up 10 minutes late everywhere because you have to watch porn. Do you think you're getting the job or do you think that other guy gets the job? And he can move forward in his career. You're stuck. How much money over the course of your life is that going to cost you because you are so tethered to pornography? So I almost feel like I do an intervention when I first
I
work with my
love,
clients to
I
give them
love,
they need to find motivation. I can share with you 1,000 stories about clients. I can share with you 1,000 statistics about why you shouldn't use. I can tell you all about the brain chemistry, but ultimately, the only
yeah,
way
yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to quit is to have your internal motivation. And you should figure that out before you even start because this isn't going on a diet. This is a full lifestyle mindset
Well,
change.
Let me
I
say
love
something
how
that
you,
feels overdue. For a long time, alcohol care has been reactive. You wait until things are really bad or until you hit some imaginary rock bottom and then you're allowed to get help. That doesn't make sense anymore. I'm Ian, one of the co founders of Sunnyside Med, and we believe proactive alcohol care is here. Sunnyside Med is for people who know alcohol is taking up too much space, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, and want support before things blow up and get worse. We combine licensed medical care with naltrexone, a medication that's been used for decades to help with alcohol cravings at the brain level, plus coaching and tools that help people change their relationship with alcohol in real life, not just in theory. What we hear from members isn't shame or desperation, it's relief. They say, I don't obsess about alcohol as much. I can stop drinking earlier. This finally feels like something I can work with. This isn't about labels. It's not about quitting forever unless you want to. It's about having modern, evidence based support for your drinking right now, not someday in the future. If you've been thinking, I should probably start drinking less, you don't have to wait. You can go to sunnyside.co/JASMINE today. Answer a few questions, and a licensed clinician will review your information to see if there's a fit. Proactive alcohol care is here, and you can start today. Visit sunnyside.co/JASMINE or just search for Sunnyside Med
Mindset
in Google.
well,
change.
I love how you go about this, because I've talked to other people who try to help people with porn addiction, and nobody has gone about it the way that you just described. And the way you described is like you just getting to their heart, and that right there is what does it. Like I just felt chills when you said that 50 years later, or 50 years ago, you use porn, so now you don't get to make those memories with a grandchild. Like that is so great. Oh my gosh. I'm like, everybody should be learning from you because this is honestly the best way I've heard anybody go about trying to change people's minds about their usage of pornography, right? I
Well,
love it.
it's like I said, we can do the math. I can give you all the facts, but you are going to stop because of an emotional reason.
Hmm.
You are going to stop because you have that specific motivation, and it's going to be different for everybody. But you're going to need to figure out what is it on those rough nights where all you want to do is use. What is it you can tell yourself that's going to stop you? And maybe it's the image of your son or your daughter. I don't think it's going to be a statistic from
No.
2023 about how many people are using a certain website.
And apparently, pornography, well, at least in the UK, somebody I talked to, it's one of the biggest addictions out there, and that
Yes.
it's the number one addiction in the UK. It's just not something that people think about, but it is actually one of the biggest addictions out there, and there needs to be more help for people. There is help, but I don't think that it's necessarily the right help coming from like what you said, that's the help people truly need. The because like for me, I was an opiate addict as well later on, and again, my family was the reason why I stopped. So and anybody I've talked to who has well gone into recovery, it's for an emotional reason. And
Yeah.
so that's how you have to go about it. And I just love that you find because every one size doesn't fit all. It's just how it is. And I love that you find the way to get to every individual person's heart. It's so incredible. I love it so much.
Well, one thing I learned as a manipulator when I was young, and I should have had a PhD in manipulation by the time I left high school. One thing that I learned, and that I still use this today, although I try to use it for good and not evil, is that nobody makes any move without an incentive. So, none of us go to work because it's just super fun. We go to work because there's money involved. And why do we need money? We need money to pay our bills. It's a track of incentive. So, what is the incentive to quit porn? What is the incentive to stop drinking? What is the incentive to get your life back on the right track? It's going to be an emotional core type issue. So you just have to figure out where is the incentive here because no, I don't want to quit porn. Well, that's like saying I don't want to go to work. Okay,
Hmm.
I understand that. Hell, as a former addict, I can understand not wanting to quit. But what's the alternative?
Hmm. That's
And
what kept
so,
me sober through, like, I went through a hard time in the summer. And that was exactly how I framed it. What is the alternative? If I go back, it's just going to make everything worse and destroy my family. If I stay sober, I can fix this and figure it out with clarity instead of just throwing everything in the garbage and saying, screw it. And so, like you said, everything, it's an incentive. It's the incentive to not use. And that is even in the roughest times, we need that incentive. So you placing that emotional picture in somebody's head when something bad happens, that picture is gonna flash in their mind and they're not going to want to use. So it's so smart. Like
and the other thing is, you have to point out their faulty thinking. I have clients who will come, well, why must you quit? Well, and when it's a lot of Muslim or Islamic clients, I have to quit because this is a terrible, terrible sin against God. So, okay, that's fair enough. Whatever you believe is cool, but it's clearly not enough incentive for you. You would have quit by now for God or for your wife or for your kids or for whatever. if it was going to be enough incentive. So let's take whatever that is, and let's say it's not enough incentive because you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me now. If God was enough incentive for you, if your family was enough incentive. So we have to find another incentive to you to quit because while God works for some people, while family works for some people, while employment works for some people, we need to find on an individual basis what is your incentive? What
Mhm.
is your reason for quitting? How is pornography going to change your life for the negative unless you take care of this? And you basically need to create a picture for yourself that your life is so unmanageable or so not what you want it to be that there is no other alternative than to quit.
I just think it's like it's so true, and it's just people don't get that, and like that, like with like saying, "Oh, because it's a sin, and I want to quit because of God." Well, you're right; it's not enough. If you would have quit, and so for me, I just love that you took what you learned in addiction and turned it into a positive way because I believe everybody's recovery needs to be individualized because we all think differently. That's why I do an individualized resources guide for
Mhm.
people. I do it for free, just whatever their addiction is, I'll give them resources on that specific addiction. And that's what I do. But that's far different from obviously what you do. I just think of the individualized approach is super, super important because otherwise you're not going to reach everybody if the incentive is always the same, you know? So I love
It-
that.
yeah,
And
it can't be.
what was it? So once your family did the intervention, what was it that got you to stop using porn and alcohol?
I couldn't see a life that I could be content or happy in if I continued to go the way that I was. So I guess I knew no matter what happened, I needed to quit these addictions. And it seemed like it would be easier to quit the addictions, better to quit the addictions, likely to be more successful to quit the addictions if I had the support of my family around me. If I didn't have my family telling me, you need to go to rehab, you need to get into therapy, you need to start doing some of this stuff, I don't know that I would have done it on my own. I needed the nudge. Everybody says you have to get clean for yourself. And while I agree, you're the one that has to get
You
clean.
have to do it, but
You find your motivation, you find your incentive anywhere. It does. I don't think it
and I
matters if
don't
you.
think you have to hit a huge rock bottom. That's so
No,
like
rock
traumatic.
bottom is death. Rock bottom
Yeah,
is death.
that's exactly how I think of it. I don't think that everybody's reason for quitting is different, but I don't think that it needs to be this crazy story of rock bottom because, like you said, I truly agree. Rock bottom is death. So there isn't really rock bottom. It's what was it that made you want to stop? That's what it is. And you hit the nail, or you hit the nail, or I can't say it, but you basically
Nailhead, I hit it.
you hit it because that's exactly what like the answer needs to be an incentive. And honestly, I was the same way. I was told you need to go to AA. You're and like it stuck with me. I had obviously had my spouse threatened to leave me because of it. And guess what? I went to AA because I didn't want to lose my family.
Mhm. And I tell my clients now, what, like you just said earlier, Jasmine, that no two people heal the same. I tell them, I want you to go to a therapist. I want you to come see me as a coach. I want you to go to an AA meeting. I want you to try a different kind of meeting. I want you to read a book, listen to a podcast, watch some YouTube videos, because no two people heal the same. I liken it to going to a buffet. If you and I go
Yeah.
to a buffet, we're both going there to get rid of our hunger. So we both grab a plate and then we go down the aisle. You and I get back to our table. Our plates look very different, but we're both solving the same problem, our hunger.
It's
Just
perfect.
because my recipe for recovery looks different, I did AA for about 9 months. I did Sex Addicts Anonymous for about 6 months. I really liked the tenets. I really liked the foundation, but the medium was
Yeah.
just not something that
Well,
clicked with me. After
that was
after
the
this
thing.
time, I wasn't going to. After step four, I wasn't going to really get anything else out of this.
Well,
It's not my way of doing things. I'm not really a herd animal. I'm more of a leader. I only liked the meetings when I got to lead them. So
mhm.
for my personality type, I actually do a lot better going on shows like this. I do a lot better writing my books. I stay sober by having clients every day. That's how I do it. And I don't apologize that I don't listen to 101 podcasts or I don't go to 12 step meetings.
Yeah, I
This is
know.
just my recipe for recovery, and
And
everybody's recipe is going to be different.
well,
And
that's
that's why I say at the buffet, try a little bit of everything and see what works best for you.
I love that analogy, and that was kind of the point of my resource guides is because one size doesn't fit all. I didn't like AA. It didn't work for me. Um, I ended up like relapsing, leaving, and finding it's like the way that I ended up getting sober was through going to Celebrate Recovery, which is also a
Mhm.
12-step meeting, but it's different than AA. But like you said, there's so many resources out there that we're not necessarily given by our clinicians. So somebody like you offering up that buffet, then that person feels empowered of taking the choice of what they think will help them. And then they don't feel trapped in a box and having to do something that they don't want to, it doesn't work, then they're just going to go through the cycle again. So I love that. And I love that analogy. I swear I'm going to steal that from you. Sorry.
That's okay. Trademark. Uh,
Yeah, you
that
better trademark that one. But
no,
you
that's
said you've
okay.
written some books. So what are your novels about? Like I know like they're probably about helping people, but what? So how many books have you written and what are they about? This would be a better
Well,
question.
in all honesty, I've written dozens of books. I've just done it for other people. One of the things I've done in my life is be a ghostwriter for other people. So technically, I've written a lot of books. Under my name, I have written 4 books about pornography. The first one was mostly a memoir. And then the second book was about betrayal trauma, which is what the partner of a porn addict often goes through when they find out that this person who they thought they knew, who they loved, sometimes for 10, 20 years, turns out to be a porn addict after lying to them about it, after saying there was nothing going on. So that was my second book. Third book was a look at pornography during the early months of the pandemic. And the final book I wrote that's been published was a basic guide for somebody being a porn addict, kind of a self-diagnosis guide to being a porn addict. And I'm currently working on my 5th book, which is supposed to come out in October 2026, which will be a guide for parents who are just trying to figure out how to navigate this world of pornography in this time because, I grew up in a time where the toughest thing about pornography was getting access to a copy of Playboy. And now
Yep.
we give every kid the greatest porn computer in the history of the world. And where I would see an airbrushed naked lady, they can now watch, group sex with animals. And
Yep.
there is going to be a much bigger fallout from
And
giving kids nonstop access to that stuff than me watching what is essentially PG or seeing pictures that are essentially PG-13 these days. That are pictures you see on Instagram or on TikTok these days. That's what I got addicted to. Now you've got this hardcore deviant pornography.
And a
What's going
parent
to
that doesn't
happen?
know how to deal with their kid that's locked in their room for 12 hours a day doing you know what.
Yeah,
And I love that all of your books, if you put them all together, it's like an all-encompassing look at porn addiction
yeah,
from all different angles. And I think that that is very important because A, coming from helping the parents understand, helping the spouse understand, helping people understand the addiction through like you talking about it, and then helping people if they feel like they might have a problem, being able to understand if they do or not. So I love that it's basically like an anthology of
yeah.
all encompassing a porn addiction. So I think that is an amazing tool for so many people. Like as a parent, I worry myself, like my son's only 5 and I can hear him watching shows that say like oh motherfucker because he watches like the videos on how to play Minecraft and somebody
Yeah,
will die and you'll hear somebody go motherfucker and he's
yeah,
only 5. So
yeah.
I already think like oh God, what's gonna happen when he's 13 and maybe even younger, like 10 nowadays, and finds this stuff because he already like I know likes girls, sometimes he whips it out in front of them. So I mean, I know this might be a problem later. So that is a book I'll probably end up having to purchase. Anyways, so how do people find these books if they're interested in them?
You can go to my website, which is thatcorncoach.com, corn like the vegetable, because nobody wants to type the word porn into their computer when they're trying to get over it.
Yeah.
And on social media, they don't allow the word porn most of the time. The word corn has become the code word.
Or like
So
sex for sex.
yes, exactly, exactly. So it is that corncoach.com. You can buy them through that site, or you can go on to Amazon. They're all available there. And like I said, my newest book for parents currently is, I'm writing it right now. It is scheduled to be released in October 2026.
And for coaching, now I'm in Canada. Do you offer coaching all over or is it
I offer coaching around the world, and that's one of the reasons why I became a coach because of the pandemic. I couldn't go to colleges and churches and libraries and give presentations anymore. So a good friend of mine suggested that I become a coach, and because he said if you become a therapist, you can only practice in your state.
and
And
you
it's like,
also have to not, you can't share your experience, which by
exactly,
sharing your
exactly.
experience,
It
it
is.
helps people.
My own therapist was like, become a coach. You don't want to be handcuffed being a
My
therapist.
cousin did that. She was the
So,
same way. She had gone through a lot, and her therapist said the same thing. Become a peer support worker because you can use your experience to help people, and you don't have that wall where you can't share things. And I believe that the experience from coming from somebody that's already gone through it is more helpful when you're looking for help than talking to a therapist who cannot relate. Even if they can, they cannot tell you that, right? So,
exactly. Or they shouldn't. Um,
mhm.
and I actually have clients right now in 8 time zones in the world, which is totally cool because I get to talk to people all over. I have somebody who I can talk to in Singapore. I have someone I can talk to in Ireland. I have someone I talk to in Qatar. I have someone I talk to in New Zealand. And lots of every time zone in the US,
And
people
it's
in
kind of
Canada.
cool. It's cool because I have like I used to have a business where I did tarot reading, and I would have I still do have do it a little bit. And I've met people all over the world, and it's cool learning their cultures
Yeah.
and getting to know them. And even with the podcast, I've met a lot of people from all over. And I just think that it's cool that you are able to kind of meet these people and learn from them too about just the different ways of living,
Yeah.
and you're also helping them, so it's just an interesting experience. And so if somebody wanted, since I'm glad that you do help Canadians, that's something people will email me and ask me about you because I have it all the time. Oh, do they serve Canadians, right? So that's why I
Canadians are
said,
very polite, but you guys do like your porn a lot too.
oh yeah. And so I was just wondering, like, so if somebody wants the coaching, like the virtual coaching, do they just go to the same website?
Yeah, go to thatcorncoach.com. Right on the front page, there's a link to schedule with me and all the information that you need. And, ultimately, it's a great first step
Hmm.
because I am the least judgmental person on earth.
And
I,
that's
I
something
don't.
people are so afraid of when it comes to this addiction is the judgment.
I was a porn addict for 24 years. Whatever you saw, trust me, I saw it too, probably twice. And I know that it doesn't reflect who you are as a human. I know it doesn't reflect your values. I know it doesn't reflect your heart. Addiction is a disease. Addiction is an illness. I understand it because I was there. Yes, I'm
Mhm.
embarrassed by a lot of what I looked at, but I looked at it as a very ill individual and it didn't reflect my heart or my brain. And I know that's true with other ill individuals. So I see people show up for their first time, Jasmine, like deer in headlights. They've
That's what I
never
was
talked
thinking.
about porn with anybody. They are afraid I'm going to call them a pervert or whatever else goes on. And by the halfway point of our first session, we're sitting back and we're laughing and we're talking because for the first time, this weight is off their shoulders.
Mhm.
They're able to, when I tell somebody, so I bet you lose track of time with porn all the time. I bet you sit down and think you're going to look for 30 minutes, and the next thing you know, an hour's gone by. And, whoa, I'm not the only one. It's like,
Mhm.
no,
Or even the
everybody
type of
who's,
porn. I bet you get somebody that admits to maybe see, because I'll admit, I remember looking at bestiality pornography, and I know that that's something people really don't want to admit to. And I guarantee that somebody coming to you would be terrified of admitting that to anybody. But once you do, it's like, huh, and
right.
like,
And
you
that
understand.
either means that you are attracted to animals, which I can't really help with, although we can
I
figure
was
that
just
out, and then I
curious
can
about
send
it.
you to somewhere else, or you have porn addiction, which escalates just like alcohol. I was drinking two beers when I was 14 would get me buzzed. By the end of high school, I needed a six pack. By the end of college, I needed a case. By the time I was 30, I could not drink enough beer to get drunk, so I had to
Mhm.
switch to tequila. It's the same thing with pornography, like gambling. A $10 bet becomes a $50 bet becomes a
That's how I
$100
lost
bet.
my house. My
You're not
husband,
you're not looking for a bigger high. You're looking for the same high, but it has to escalate. So
that's how
see,
my
and they,
husband lost our house because it was starting out with these 10 cent bets, and then it escalated and escalated and escalated, and it got to a point where he couldn't pay the bills anymore, and we lost the house because it, like you said, it just escalates, right? And
and
even like with me looking at the bestiality, it was out of curiosity
of
because of
course.
boredom of already seeing regular porn, so you're like,
Well,
oh well,
that's
what
it.
else is out there?
If you can't get those chemicals, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, if you can't get them firing in your head, looking at a naked lady or a naked man, or looking at them have sex, or looking at three or four of them have sex at the same time, or maybe looking at them having sex playing with food in an igloo while a mariachi band plays, it just becomes more and more escalated. So
Well,
you are watching stuff that Good Lord, if you opened up a hotel room door and you saw somebody having sex with an animal, you would shut the door and run the other direction. You're not into that. You're not interested in that. But because you've built a tolerance, just like addicts in every other addiction, because you've built a tolerance, you have to go to a deeper, more hardcore place to get that same reaction in your
It
mind. And
just
that's
made so
why I
much
think it's
sense.
important for people to understand, yes, there are sick people in this world who look at bestiality. There are sick people who look at underage porn. There are sick people who look at violent porn. But there's also a bunch of addicted people that end up there, not because they have those philias, but because
Escalated.
pornography addiction, like every other addiction, just escalates.
Well, we
And
just
let's be honest, addiction quite often, regardless of the addiction, does escalate to the point of illegal behavior.
Well, you just like really made sense to me for something that I went through when I was younger. Was I had a boyfriend like near the end of high school and a couple years after. And it started off where we would have to watch porn while we had sex, and the porn would get more and more graphic over time. And I never really understood why it, like at first it was just regular, like
Mhm.
some lesbian porn. And then it would get more and more and more and more, and he would watch it more and more, and I never understood it, right? But then you explaining this escalation point, because I know with drugs, yes, that happens, but I never really thought about it when it comes to pornography. And I guess it's like any other addiction, you're
Mhm.
gonna escalate.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it doesn't mean that you're a pervert. It doesn't mean that you're deviant. It can mean those things in a different way of using that material, but for the addict, it's just trying to get those receptors in your brain to fire. Like when I was 12 years old getting addicted, a regular photo in a magazine could do it for me because it was all so new. By the time I was 30, 35 years old, you could show me a photo of anything and it wasn't going to work. I needed a video because just a single picture wasn't going to do a darn thing for me. And it sure wasn't going to do it just, a naked lady walking on a beach. That stopped working 15 years earlier. And what you also often see, especially in couples who have, whether one partner has a pornography addiction, you see a dead bedroom a lot of the time because the only way that the husband or the wife or the boyfriend and the girlfriend can get the necessary dopamine to perform sexually is through the new imagery and the over the top hardcore imagery of pornography. If you have a partner, if you've been married, I've been married now for 23 years. How many hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, have I seen my wife naked? How many hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, have we had sex? I love her more than anybody I've ever loved, but I know how that movie ends. And I don't know what the next thing on Pornhub, what the next thing on OnlyFans is going to do. And we know based on brain science that new imagery excites the brain more than old imagery. And whether you want to admit it or not, seeing that naked partner, having sex with that naked partner may not be enough to get you
Mhm.
stimulated anymore because you've done so much damage to your brain as a porn addict.
And I've seen, like, I was watching was it a reality TV show? And the wife, she just couldn't understand it. Her husband would never sleep with her, no matter how hard she tried. All he would do was porn. All he wanted was porn, and it ended up ruining their marriage in the show, like because he would never sleep with her, and she was like hot, like smoking hot. Her name was also Jasmine, and she would
Well,
like throw her.
isn't everybody named Jasmine smoking hot?
No, not me. But anyways, she was throwing herself at him and getting like plastic surgery, everything just to get him to be attracted to her. But all he wanted to do was watch porn, and it ruined their relationship. But I think the thing that people don't realize with porn addiction is that it escalates like every other addiction. I don't think people think about that, but like it
It
does.
has nothing to do with sex. That's the other thing people have to realize. You're not addicted to breasts or penises or vaginas. You're addicted to the chemical reaction in your head
Mhm. The
that allows
dopamine.
you to escape, that allows you to feel control. And it just so happens, when people say, why pornography for you? So I was 12 years old. It was 1988. Nobody was letting me into a casino. I didn't know where to buy hard drugs when I was 12 years old. Nobody was letting me into a bar. The only thing I could get my hands on was pornography. And now I recognize I went through a bunch of trauma and never figured out how to deal
That
with
was
it
your way to cope, was
because
to look at the porn.
because once you find something that works, why keep looking? So
That's what alcohol does.
porn and alcohol were the things that always worked for me. And there's a story of a sex addict who had a wife who was a beautiful actress. She had been Miss America. And he would sneak out in the middle of the night. She was the perfect woman by all accounts. He would
Mm.
sneak out of their Hollywood home in the middle of the night and go have risky sex with risky people in back
Because
alleys
it's get me excited.
in parts of LA that you would not go into in the daytime. This was not because he needed to have sex. He needed to access these chemicals, and that was the only way he can do it. She could be the most beautiful, the funniest, the smartest, the hottest, the best in bed, the richest. It didn't matter because none of that was going to be what he needed because having sex with his wife was not a coping tool.
Exactly.
Having sex with these random people was. It
And it was
wasn't
giving him
about
the
the sex.
dopamine hit that he was looking for, the coping, the numbing, the
Exactly.
forgetting about everything. And like you said, it's individualized even when it comes to addiction. I know like I have a friend who is a crack addict. I don't understand that addiction. I don't understand the high. It only lasts 10 minutes. Like, what's the point? But again, it's just what gets you go like what gives you that dopamine hit and what gives you that coping and what gives you that numbness, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's just whatever I don't know, whatever you relate to, I think is what addiction's going to come to you, you know what I mean? And like for me,
Absolutely.
I had like the sex thing you were just talking about, where it was in I would have a thing where I wanted to do it in risky, crazy places. They always had to be somewhere crazy. And I always had to be hammered off my ass. And I had
Mhm.
to go and sleep with somebody that was also random in crazy places and like place like crazy places. Like I one time we did it on a racetrack and like light shining down like, and it was like why, now that I don't like, now that I'm away from it, I'm like why did I need that? But it totally makes sense now. It was just giving me an extra high, like,
Yeah.
oh, this is dangerous. Woo, right?
Yeah. Yep, because that's going to get your chemicals going a little bit more than having sex in a safe hotel room or in a safe bed. It's going to cause your neurotransmitters to create the amount of these chemicals you need. And the reality is, you create with pornography or sex, you create up to 4 times the natural amount of chemicals. So how can anything in life compare? If sex with your partner or sex with a random person on the street only gets you 25% of your chemicals,
You're not gonna want it.
and then you go use porn or you go engage in risky sexual behavior and that gives you 100%, you're going to go to that because and unfortunately that's not natural. You're not supposed to get 4 times the dopamine that nature intended for you. We have figured out this hack, and we've got millions and millions and millions of people, especially younger people, diving into it
Deep
without knowing
self-care.
what they're getting into. People ask me why I still do all of these podcasts and I still, try to speak as much as I can, even though that, most of my income now comes from the coaching. And it's because we just need a world that understands this. We need a
Well,
world that this isn't about naked people doing naked things. This
like
is
I said,
about,
even at the beginning, when you were talking about how you go about coaching somebody, that's something when you explain on podcasts, somebody will learn in their own mind. Like, when if you're sober curious about this, they'll start thinking, oh, yeah, with my grandpa, I did this. Like, it's just bringing awareness to
Mhm.
what porn addiction really is. So I
Yeah.
think, and I've never had anybody explain it the way you have. So I think you got to keep speaking because you bring the best explanation I have ever seen anybody bring to this addiction.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, you do, you have, and I mean, I've talked to lots of people because that's what I do, but I've never had anybody explain it in the most easiest to understand, but also the most truthfully how it like it's just laid out there. Like I don't know, I'm just saying, like I've never, you just explain it so well, and from your own experience, you put that into it, and you use that like those tools to help people change their thinking. And that is something most people when they come on and they talk about that, they don't say those kinds of things. They might say, oh, you need to get to your root cause of your trauma, but they don't get into detail like you have about what the addiction is, why the addiction is, and how to help somebody who's going through it. So
Well,
I appreciate you coming on and bringing this much awareness because I honestly, like I said, have not had anybody explain it so perfectly.
thank you. And it is the way that I look at it is that, in the end, we are all just stories. And don't you want your story to be a great one? And your addiction is not allowing you to have the best story possible. I would have, and I'm sure you can feel this way too. I would have laughed at you 15 years ago if you told me, we're going to take away your porn, we're going to take away your alcohol, and we're going to take away your work, because I certainly was a workaholic too. We're going to take all of this away and see how you survive. And I'd be, oh my God, I'm going to be
Yeah,
dead within a
absolutely.
week. I'm going to be dead within
Mhm.
a week. And here I am all these years later, and I'm happier and healthier in every aspect of my life than I ever could have imagined. I didn't understand how recovery could work, how it could be so good. And that's a big reason why I'm out there, educating, is to say it's better on this side of the fence. Get off the fence, get better. It's so much better on this side. The grass is greener.
And you're also not saying that just one method is the method to get better. You're saying that it's one size doesn't fit all, and we'll try whatever, that can help you.
Come try out my coaching. Like a lot of people in this world, you may love me, or like a lot of people in this world, you may think I'm a raging asshole. That's okay. Just get help either way. Even if coaching isn't your thing, even if 12 steps isn't your thing, figure out what is your thing, because there's a better life waiting on the other side.
And like you said, with the people that are younger, I remember when I was drinking heavily and all I wanted was to get married and have children. But my drinking was keeping me from doing that because nobody wanted to be with me. I was a freaking train wreck, right? So I
Mhm.
would just dive deeper into the depression because I knew I wasn't going to have the life I wanted instead of taking the steps to have that life, which I eventually did. And I think that that's the most important part about what your coaching does. It allows them to understand that you're going to lose out in a lot of things in life if you don't get help. And that grass is greener on this side because you will have the things that you want.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I let them know also right up front, very honestly, I'm just your guide. I'm like that little guy, the Sherpa who gives you ideas to climb Mount Everest. I've been up and down the mountain 100 times. I'll show you how to pack your backpack. I'll show you the best route to take. I'll show you the best equipment to have. But each step you have to take yourself. You're going to have to be the one who does the heavy lifting. I'm just the guide. I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have three magic sentences for you to follow. If I did, I would be crazy rich. But I don't because there is no magic solution. It all is hard work. But if you're going to recover along, even before you figure out your motivation or your incentive, you have to know you can. There is nothing about you that is a unique snowflake that you are the unicorn that can't get better. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who have recovered from every addiction out there. There is nothing about you that is fundamentally, physiologically different where you can't get better. And you need to understand that from a strictly uh, uh, objective point of view, you can get better, but you have to choose to get better.
I love that. And I was just going to say, do you have any last words before we go? But those are really good.
Well, let me
But
just let me just say one thing about pornography addiction, which I still face, is that there is no stereotypical porn addict. I deal with men. I deal with a lot of women. My female clients double every year that I've been doing this. A lot of women have porn addiction. It's people from, I don't see children, but I see people from 18, 19 years old all the way up to their late 60s. I see every color. I see every religion. I see every, socioeconomic demographic, of people out there. There is no way for you to say, well, I look at porn, but I can't be an addict because I'm a Christian or I'm a woman or I vote this way or my parents raised me like this. It's just like alcohol. It's just like any other addiction. You too can have it. Do not think you have some kind of disqualifying characteristic where you can't have porn addiction. If I can have porn addiction, if I can have alcoholism, growing up in a great family, having a great family now, anybody can.
well, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I have never had anybody talk about it this way. And I think if anybody is struggling out there with porn addiction, reach out to Joshua because honestly, I've talked to lots of people. He is somebody that will truly help you, and I believe that. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of that. And I honestly think that what you're doing is incredible, and I'm sure you're helping a lot of people. And like you said, porn addiction is not just men, it's women too. And that's something that we need to be more open to understanding about this addiction. So I'm glad you brought that up as well. So thank you for everything. It was amazing to talk to you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Jasmine.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.